promoted. Thank you all for, first of all, Karen, thank you for inviting me and giving me the opportunity to speak. And thank you all for being here. Transportation is a passion of mine, beyond just my current job. So if I wasn't here speaking, I may be here in attendance. So as Sharon mentioned, I work for Brightline. This is my third week on the job. So during Q&A, let's be a little easy on me. Prior to that, I worked for CSX for quite a while, so I do have a private perspective on transportation, not just with freight rail, but just in general. And before that, I worked for the MPO, so I've seen the public side of things too. So I kind of understand both perspectives. But definitely right now, I definitely have a private perspective on transportation, and I'm excited to talk to you today about a project that is a privately funded project that is happening here in Florida. And it's not going to be for everyone, but it is. We definitely know who our market is. So I'm just going to go through a couple slides here. So Brightline right now is it's private high-speed rail operating between currently it operates between Miami, Fort Lauderdale, and West Palm. That system is up and running. And then we have started pre-construction activity on their way from West Palm to Orlando. And I'll talk a little bit more about that. And then we recently announced plans to extend from Orlando to Tampa. I think the difference, you heard, I think it was John that said, he cautioned transit agencies not to get into the real estate business. We're kind of the flip side. We are real estate developers. We are a hospitality company that is doing transportation. So we're doing it from a private free market perspective. The key with what we're doing, Randall talked about how rail is not successful, and that is true if you look at Amtrak nationwide. But there are some examples of where private passenger rail does work. Up in the Northeast Corridor, it's fairly successful between New York and DC. And then over in England and France, there are some examples where it is successful. And the key here is choosing the right city pairs. So whereas Amtrak kind of has to be spread thin across the country and be everything to everyone, the advantage of our approach is we can be very targeted in where we are operating and where we are investing our rail lines. And so why we think it will work in Florida. And Florida is a good example. Beyond Florida, we are looking at other city pairs around the country. Atlanta, Charlotte, I think might be an opportunity. And then even around Las Vegas, LA might be an opportunity in the future. There are other city pairs that we are having discussions with. But we think Florida was a great starting point because our sweet spot are those city pairs that are too long to drive, too short to fly. So from Miami to Orlando, it takes 4 hours to get there. The last part from Fort Lauderdale, if you're going from Orlando to Miami, that last part from Fort Lauderdale to Miami is a bear. That's the worst part of the whole trip. But it's an awful 4-hour drive, and it's 4 hours if you're lucky. It could be longer depending on traffic. But flying there is no picnic either. The flight takes an hour. So I did it last week. It takes an hour, but it takes you spend about 3 hours in the airports. And on the way back home, I had a 5:35 flight that finally left at around 8:30. So you're at the mercy of the airlines. And what happened was they were waiting on a connecting flight. A connecting flight was coming in from Argentina to Miami. A bunch of families that wanted to go to Disney World, so they held up my flight from Miami to Orlando. And as somebody that grew up in Orlando, I'm glad they did that because tourism is our bread and butter in Orlando, so that's fine. But it's for the individual traveler, flying is you're uncontrollable, driving is unpredictable. So we think that this is our sweet spot. And then, like I said, this is another reason why Florida. We have I think we're up to 116 million visitors into the state. Population is around 20 million, and both of those numbers are going up. So it's a great place to invest. It's a great place. Everyone wants to be here. We're not building high-speed rail from between South Dakota and North Dakota. We are here in Florida because this is where the growth is, and this is where we think is a great opportunity. I show you, this talks about the economic impact of what we're doing in Florida. And a lot of times when you hear advocates for any sort of public project, whether it's highway, rail, or whatever, they talk about the number of jobs that are going to be created, or the economic impact. And if we pay $1 billion for people to dig holes and then fill them in, the state will realize $1 billion in economic impact. The difference with us, though, is this is private money that we're investing, but then the state still gets that economic impact in jobs and in construction activity. So I'm not saying that to convince you to love Brightline. We're not here trying to persuade you on a position one way or the other, but it is a benefit, a public benefit that I think is important to know. So these are some photos, and I show this because these are actual photos. They're not conceptual drawings. We have proof of concept. We are actually operating between Miami to West Palm. The system is very successful. It's very, very popular, and not just with people commuting to work. If you take the train on, I've taken the train on a Friday night, and you have people from Miami that now want to go to dinner in West Palm, and people in West Palm that want to go to dinner in Miami. So it's getting a lot of really good ridership. And you can see that the trains are. It doesn't look like a New York subway station. It's a very inviting place to be, and we're very happy with what we've seen so far. I'm very optimistic about it. And then this is, I mentioned real estate development. So that is really the key. So Brightline as a train operation it's a standalone entity. We have our own P&L, and we are focused on making that profitable. But the real opportunity for us and for our investors is in the development that is happening just around our station. This is a conceptual drawing. This is in Overtown, which is in downtown Miami, and for decades has just kind of been a dead zone. Not a lot going on there. But since we've opened our station, the building on the far right or the top right corner, that is in place. That exists. That's our station. The building just to the left of that is in place. The building of the three towers, the tower farthest to the right is under construction right now. So there's a lot of activity. Marriott is building a hotel adjacent to us, completely separate from us. So this has invigorated an area that had just been sitting there, and we're seeing a lot of activity. This is Miami. If you look along the beach, there's all kinds of cranes and activity, investment going on. But 5 blocks to the west, which is about where we are, there hasn't been a whole lot going on. But we've taken this undervalued real estate and really have energized it, and we think there's a big upside for it for us. And then this is just a photo of the entrance to our station in Miami. So again, not your New York subway. It's a very inviting place to be. We've got some strong retail components to it, and a lot of retail coming online. So retail, hotel, condominiums, and apartment buildings and office space, Class A office space. So it's a mix of use. We're not dependent on one particular sector. We're very excited about that. And here's the train. This is our platform in Miami. It is in downtown Miami. It is elevated, so we're not blocking. There's the grid pattern in downtown Miami, so we're not blocking streets as we bring our train in. It is elevated. It comes up, and this is the platform. Now in Orlando, our station will be at, this is actually where my office is. Our station will be at the Orlando airport. And I show this to you. This is a new Terminal C, Terminal C at the airport. The airport recently built this. They've been planning on this for decades now. The Orlando airport's busting at the seams, and they need more gate space and they need more terminal space. JetBlue is building a gate that will use this terminal. They have an automatic people mover that operates into this, and then Brightline will also run into this. So we're a tenant already, and then once our trains do land in Orlando, we'll be a tenant just like an airline, paying an annual access fee and then a fee based on the number of passengers we have. So this is where we are in Orlando. Like I said, this building exists right now as well. And then, so why Tampa? Tampa, I think there's some opportunities just as there are on the Miami side. There's some portions of downtown Tampa that formerly were industrial areas that no longer are what they used to be. And, I think there's a real opportunity. They're undervalued, underutilized, and we're looking at about 7 different sites in the downtown area where we could have our station and then have some adjacent development opportunities. But it's like the whole state. It's a vibrant region. 3+ million people live here. It's a growing region, and we think by connecting Tampa, Orlando, and Miami, you get kind of this snowball effect between all of them operating, providing opportunities between the cities, and we think that'll be a wonderful thing. As far as benefits to the Tampa economy, I think just as we are with Orlando and Miami, you can have business travel between the 3 cities. Certainly some great tourism opportunities. Disney is the most popular place on earth. Orlando, I think, is up to about 70 million visitors a year. There's a lot of great opportunity for the hotels here in downtown Tampa to tap into some of that, where people can come here for the beaches and all the things that you offer here over in the Tampa-St. Pete region, but then also use our train to get to the theme parks in Orlando. And then also vice versa, you have a lot of opportunities here that I think people that are staying in the Orlando area might want to come over and take advantage of as well. So, and then I want to leave you with just a couple of quotes here. I actually saw the second quote. I happened to read it the morning I was putting together this presentation. I'm like, oh wow, this is perfect. So Rick Scott talks about his quote when he announced the fact that there was a private company looking at investing in high-speed rail between Tampa and Orlando. He says, "This is an exciting opportunity for Orlando, Tampa, and our entire state. Instead of placing taxpayers on the hook for hundreds of millions of dollars, our goal is for the private sector to invest in this project." And I want you to compare this to California. California right now is building high-speed rail. The same funding that Governor Scott rejected, they are tapping into, and they're building high-speed rail in California, from LA to Northern California. They're about $70 billion short of what they need. So get this book, and it was the first sentence that just, my mouth dropped when I read the first sentence and thought, oh, I gotta share this. The rest has to be found. Can you all look under the table, maybe? Everybody stand up and turn your chair upside down. Maybe that's where we'll find it. I don't know. But at the moment, 100% of the cost is going to be absorbed by the taxpayers. So I think that's the key difference between California and Florida. I think that shows the wisdom of Governor Scott and the decision he made 7, 8 years ago now. And the other thing I will say about that decision is the media often, they focus only on Orlando to Tampa, or Tampa to Orlando, Tampa to Orlando. Well, if we rejected this money, it would have been free. Yeah. Free. They never bring up the fact that, so there was $2.5 billion for Tampa to Orlando. What about Orlando to Miami? The system doesn't work unless all 3 cities, we would not build, as a private company, we would not build we're building from Orlando to Tampa, but we would not build if it was only Orlando to Tampa. It only works by connecting Miami, Orlando, and Tampa. So they never focus on, well, you get this free money, $2.5 billion, but they never talk about the $8 billion or so it would cost. And that was that's not what it's costing us to build from Miami to Orlando. But that's what it would have cost them. They never talk about who would have picked up the tab for that $8 billion. It would have been found, right? You would have had to find it somewhere, just like California is doing. So appreciate again the opportunity, and look forward to the Q&A after Tom's speech. Thank you.
name's Tom, and I'm a caraholic. It was handed down to me in my family, runs this addiction and affliction. My father was flying able. He took me out in his car when I was about 9 or 10 years old, put me on his lap, and we drove that 53 Cadillac of his around, you know.
Use microphone.
And my grandfather, I think he got my mom addicted to cars with his 1950-something Hudson Hornet, which was a pretty hot car back then. And her brother had the Chrysler Imperial. Am I not talking loud enough for y'all?
Just keep the mic closer.
That's all right.
Hold the mic closer.
So I'm just relating to you my automobile addiction, and I'm working right now to get myself cured, and hopefully in the course of doing that, maybe being able to pass along the cure to everybody in the Tampa Bay area to start with, and then hopefully throughout the state of Florida. So, you know, if we look at our car ownership as an addiction and as something that we were all brought up with, we can go back and we can trace the lineage of it. We can go back and say, well, you know, we can go back 120 years and look at you know, the first guys that were building cars and be able to come back with a really clear idea of why this addiction took place and why nothing's been done about it for 120 years. So, in filling the moments until we've got the screen working here.
I'm not sure it's on my computer, but it's just not displaying.
All right, so. So just to take advantage of this time while we get the presentation set up, what I've been, as I said, what I've been working on is trying to find a way to decrease the dependency on so we can get back to go back to the screens.
Yeah, you still got it.
No, go back, I think, 2 or 3. Keep going, keep going, keep going. All right, that's good. Let's start. We can start with that. Sorry about that. Thank you. So moving beyond car ownership is what the theme of I'm going to be presenting, and ending our deadly addiction. Everyone's aware that cars kill, you know, over 30,000 Americans a year. Worldwide, it's a lot more than that. And so this, you have to consider this as like an addiction that kills a lot of people, pedestrians, and does a tremendous amount of damage when you look at the amount of lives that are maimed or the damage done to the motor vehicles themselves that need to be repaired. So I'm framing this as an addiction. I'm going to blame this guy first. Henry Ford was Henry Ford was a character. You know, the more you study him, the more you see his flaws, but then you also realize he was the richest person in the world at the time. And he didn't believe in marketing research. He said, famously said, that if I asked people what they wanted, they would have told me faster horses. So he didn't do any market research. He just set out to build the cheapest car. And you know, so you're looking at his marketing strategy, make it affordable to everybody. That was the start of the big addiction, I think. So we can look at a couple more ads, and we can see how this addiction, now you're up to $1,000 on this, but look, it's dispensed with the horse is the marketing theory on this one. And you can do it for only 1/2 cent a mile. Well, that's pretty cool. You know, you talk about the economics of it, but it could go from 3 miles an hour to 20 miles an hour. That was your top speed back in the day. But that was 5 times faster than you could go on a horse and carriage. So we can look at the Rambler in the same time frame. Now there's a $2,500 car, but it can go faster. It's got more horsepower and other advantages to it. So what made cars so addictive? I'll blame him first because he made them cheap. They were sexy. I mean, you got to go out and you got to go around and you got to range further with the car than you could with a horse. You know, it was cool. And gasoline was really, 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 really cheap back in that time frame. So that's what got the addiction started. And then there was this, over the years, the appeals that were made. This idea of escapism when the Mustang came out back in my time frame, or the Bronco. That idea of being able to go places that you couldn't go otherwise. Back when I was a young guy going to Largo, we'd go out cruising. The most popular guy in the school was the first one that at 16 got his car. He was able to take his friends with him and go out. Back then it was the Big Boy and the new McDonald's that just opened in Clearwater. So cars made you popular. That contributed to that addiction. And then there was these other appeals that were going on. The status appeal or the show off your wealth appeal. That was my car while I was going to finishing up at the junior college, the MGB, same color, steering wheel was on the other side. But there's an appeal in that too. Sports cars were kind of, dashing or whatever, sexy. So, I'm going to take you back into my background just a little bit. So you heard it mentioned I was the youngest engineer on the launch crew for Apollo 11 49 years ago, almost right now. And up on the, let's see if I can use this, up there, in that area, there's a gondola sitting up there. That was part of the emergency egress system for the astronauts. And you barely see it, even though this is a pretty large photograph. I remember the day I was up there and I was shown how to operate that. And the idea about it was that there was a real sharp hatchet sitting there. It was a gravity operation. And anybody that was stuck on the launch pad at those levels would get to that, climb in that, and somebody would cut the rope and the gravity would take you down a half mile away behind a bunker, because if that thing ever exploded, it would have been really serious. So anyway, just to share a story, another quick story. I got the opportunity 2 years ago to talk to Buzz Aldrin a little bit about my experience during the time of the launch. That's a whole other story. But I found Buzz to be kind of he's a character and futuristic and stuff. And I look forward to running into him next year for the 50th anniversary of the launch. So here we are in Tampa Bay, and we're dealing with this. What's it going to take to end our addiction? I put together a team some time ago to work on this. We've got local folks here. Steve Henley's with me today. My brother Bud is the former head of Visit Florida, so we've got the tourism angle kind of covered with this. We're creating something that's going to be really special. Okay, let's see if we can. So how long is it going to take? Let me just try something here to see. I want to go back one slide. How long is it going to take? So we look at the last transition, and this goes back to 1903. New York City. In 1903, the photograph shows Easter Sunday, 5th Avenue, New York, and there's one automobile in 1903. Everything else is a horse and carriage. By 1913, it had reversed. All the vehicles are motor-powered, with one exception being the horse and carriage that's in the red circle. But the fact is that it really didn't take that long for that transition to take place. That transition took place basically between 1908 with the invention of the assembly line and the conveyor assembly line that was Henry Ford's contribution. It was Olds actually that came up with the initial. Let's see. All right, so somewhere along in here I've got a video, and we need to see if we can get the video to come up here. Maybe it's right there. No, that didn't do it. We have to find the button on it for the video. There it is. Cool.
The city. It's where we live, love, and create. Yet as life moves faster and faster, we move slower and slower. Traffic is just getting worse, and driverless cars won't save us, because the problem is not the driver, it's the car. It's been a century, and it is time to move on. SkyTran is the first public transit system that's as personal as a car. It will unclog our cities and transform our lives. With SkyTran, there's no schedule. Its predictive artificial intelligence knows when you need your ride. Stations are so narrow they can fit over sidewalks, so they're always just a short walk away. SkyTran's revolutionary magnetic levitation technology enables you to fly on a cushion of air. Traveling in a skypod is so quiet and smooth that you can comfortably work or just simply relax. Skypods don't need to pick up or drop off other passengers, so there are absolutely no stops on the way to your destination. In the city, skypods can fly over busy streets at 50 miles an hour and speed up to 200 miles an hour between cities. With some stations built directly into office buildings, a 2-hour commute can be reduced to 20 minutes. SkyTran's low cost and simple construction allows for many more lines than conventional public transport systems, which in turn allows for greater capacity. Per mile, SkyTran is 1/10 the cost of light rail and 1/100th the cost of a subway. With its speed and high capacity, SkyTran can bring an end to traffic. A dream come true. The next step will be something we've never even dreamed of. Transforming streets into parks, cafes, and markets. Without cars, we can breathe, create, and wander. After 100 years, it's time for a change.
So a couple of years ago, I negotiated a deal with SkyTran. I spent a lot of time doing research, and I wanted to see what was coming out of NASA. And this concept was actually one of the engineers that worked on the Apollo program years ago came up with the original patent. And so I believe, based on my research and my analysis, being a local guy, knowing that the traffic just continues to get worse, that we have to think outside the box. We have to find something better than the automobile. Still give us that personal space. It's solar powered, so it's going to be sustainable and have all those advantages to it. And all that brings the cost of operations down. And that makes it affordable for a free enterprise system or a free enterprise company, which I head up, to be able to bring this about. We want to bring our first pilot project, if you will, between Clearwater and Clearwater Beach to eliminate the traffic congestion on that road. We want to do that as soon as we possibly can get the approvals. Those will be public-private partnerships with FDOT and the City of Clearwater. I'll be glad to answer questions later. Thank you. Enjoy your lunch.
Can't hear you.
Can you hear me now? Okay. I'm going to start off by asking a question and then I'll open it up to the audience. Brooke, I believe you had written an op-ed regarding private activity bonds. And private activity bonds, I believe I read something recently, they were part of Trump's infrastructure blueprint that you put out. If you could just provide an opinion on that and elaborate on what they are and your opinion and how they're used.
Sure. So that's a great question. Private activity bonds allow the private sector to borrow money at the same cost as the public sector. The reason that they're needed is because in the U.S. we have basically municipal bonds that allow the public sector to borrow money basically for free. No other country in the world has that. And it's one of the reasons why public-private partnerships have not been as popular here. And the reality is that the private sector, through the financing and other things, can bring tools that the public sector can't do. And the current issue we have right now with private activity bonds is you can imagine that some folks who are very pro-labor, anti-private sector were not a big fan of them. They were initiated with a cap of $15 million lifetime, and they've been around for 25 years, and we are quickly reaching that cap. So one of the things that the Trump administration proposed was lifting the cap. Other folks have proposed raising it to $25 billion. There's been some work in both the House and the Senate, but unfortunately we're not there yet. But yeah, to unlock the private sector potential and decrease costs, private activity bonds are very much necessary.
And I would like to make one follow-up to Bob and Tom, whether their projects are planning to use private activity bonds.
Yes, so we used $600 million in private activity bond financing for the Miami to West Palm segment.
For the pilot project, we're going to need approximately $50 million. I believe that we will be able to raise that from without going to the issuance of bonds. However, I'm not going to rule it out. We're going to need a large amount of money for the expansion going beyond the pilot project, and I think that's where this type of bond issuance would come in very handy.
That's for Tom. Is there an example of a system that was similar to your system, not as high speed, of course, but and what kind of results that Handling is implementing?
The system, we're going to be able to see a demo track in Mexico. We're told that it'll be sometime in September we'll be able to see this operating in Mexico. It's not out for public disclosure yet, but we understand a letter of intent's been signed by the city of Charleston, South Carolina, to bring about a 1.7 mile test track around a shopping mall in Charleston. And that's going to probably be the first actual system that you'll see in operation, and that should be in early 2019.
This question is for Brooke. When you made your presentation, you mentioned something about real-time traffic light control, which seems extremely obvious. Has there been any studies done for the cost effectiveness? In other words, could you say to the city of Tampa, it's going to cost X millions of dollars to install this, but it's going to save this amount of money in rebuilding new roads or anything like that?
Yeah, that's a great question. So it generally is cost effective on the order of 1 to 10. For every $1 you spend, you get $10 in benefits. There are some regions doing it. The biggest challenge is actually not technical, but political. If you've got a road that's operated by Florida DOT, their primary goal is to get you from point A to point B. If you've got a road that's operated by a city, they may not want you on that road because maybe it's a local neighborhood, or maybe they want to increase biking, or they want to put the road on a road diet, who knows. And so oftentimes it's a political argument. But yeah, the cost-benefit argument is very clear, and Florida DOT on some of their roads is using it.
mentioned about the trans, and maybe we're getting down the weeds, but how are you going to avoid the centipede effect? You know, you hop in a tram, and I'm ahead of you, and I stop, so you have to stop too, or I should crash in the back.
One of the keys to it is this vertical switching system, where you actually descend or you can go up either one to land at a station. You leave the high-speed track, just like on a highway, you take the exit, it's a lateral turn, that you get off the high-speed highway. Well, this is going to be a vertical switch, basically up or down.
Our food is waiting here, so we will have some opportunity to speak, but I would like to ask one more question of Bob and Tom, and that has, because we've talked about it, is around TOD. I know you spoke a little bit about it. Is that all private with your service, privately funded?
Yes, through us and our investors, so it's all private. That's why we're doing what we're doing.
Okay.
If the pilot project's successful, we're going to be building a terminal in Clearwater, and that's going to be similar to what we're talking about, TOD transit-oriented development. We're also thinking about every station that we put in the future, you know, will generate some sort of a impetus for certain types of stores to locate there. I think we're going to see a conjunction of our stations with solar-powered charging stations for electric vehicles and things like that. And so, yes, there is a big element of transit-oriented development, and we're not counting on the government to be a subsidy for that.
I think they're going to be serving our lunch. Again, we'll have an opportunity to speak to each of the speakers one-on-one. That's why we wanted to have our break during lunch, so you can have that opportunity. So let's give a round of applause.